ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Glory be to Allah, all praise to Allah. There is no God but Allah. Allah is great.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the series, True Peace, The Secret of Life. And we've been looking at this series. Last week, we looked at how education is important as a way to finding true peace and the secret of life in Islam. As we know, we are looking into the world's fastest growing religion and the most sustainable belief system in the world, and that is Islam. When we look at the educational structure of Islam, we have understood in the previous episodes specifically that this educational structure, this knowledge structure that we need to gain in Islam is a requirement for the whole of mankind. There is no excuse for any of us not to gain some type of knowledge in Islam. In fact, it is essential. It is something that we are required to do. But many times we find that there is a conflict or supposed conflict between knowledge of divinity and knowledge of science, the knowledge of the divine and the knowledge of the secular world that we are living in today. We say in many parts of the world that divine sciences are not really sciences. We call them the arts. That's why when somebody studies to become a priest or a minister, they do a BA, a Bachelor of Arts degree. Yet when you study science, you do a MSMBC or whatever it might be, you have a science degree. And they seem to be two different things. One is considered almost like an art, not really acceptable to modern society, and the other one is definitely a science. So there seems to be this conflict between the two. But nothing could be further from the truth. We should actually be swapping this around in society today. And I want you to really think carefully before you just start thinking, okay, well, here he's going into belief. We can't prove belief. I want you to think about something before you just think in that way. So many times we see, if you're like me, we get the magazines that come to your home, science magazines, or I love mathematics, so I enjoy working with math and working with, proper math, theoretical mathematics, not 1 + 1 mathematics. And so I get these magazines, and every year I find, or every month I find that they will have discovered a new scientific discovery that is going to revolutionize the way we think about matter. And then a year later, another magazine comes out that disproves that entire theory, and that theoretical mathematical equation is thrown out the window. And a replacement is found for it in science. And everybody jumps towards that and puts all their faith in that, only to find out a year later that that one has also become obsolete and nobody believes that anymore. And now there's a new answer to the whole of society. You see where I'm going with this? We are putting faith in the sciences. There is nothing wrong with the sciences. Please do not misunderstand me. I put my faith in sciences as well. But I'm very, very cautious about throwing everything into science and ignoring the divine. To believe only in science while excluding the divine. And if you are a non-Muslim and you're watching today, Islam and science agree on almost everything. So it's not that we are sitting in polar opposites with each other. In Christianity, you'll find that science and religion oppose each other. You don't find this in Islam. You'll find that we agree on most things, but not everything. I'll be honest with you. We don't agree with everything. There are many things that are outside of the realm of Islam that we find in science and that we don't agree with, and that not even science agrees with. But generally speaking, we have more in common than we don't have in common. Like I said, in Christianity, that's not the case. You'll find that the Bible is very unscientific. The Bible is, in fact, way out on almost every account. You'll hardly find a thing that they got correct when they come to anything scientific, whether it be simple things like mathematics or whether it be something as complicated as how the universe was created. So we have to understand when we're gaining knowledge that there are two different types of areas of knowledge, even when we are trying to gain knowledge from a Muslim perspective or Islamic perspective, or wanting to submit to God perspective. And there is a divine source of knowledge, which is superior, and then there is a scientific source of knowledge, which is not that inferior, but it is secondary. So why do we need to gain this kind of knowledge? Why do we need to gain divine knowledge, the divine knowledge that will help us to be better people? The need is that it helps us spiritually. Our spiritual growth will accelerate. It won't decelerate or remain the same. It won't remain passive or remain complacent. It will move forward. The scientific aspect as well in our Islamic education, it fulfills our physical needs. So the one will fulfill our spiritual needs and the other one will fulfill our physical needs. This is why we need to carry these two forward in everything that we do. The source of divine inspiration and divine knowledge comes from the words of Allah, what Allah has commanded mankind to follow and adhere to. Where we find from a scientific perspective that it is the works of Allah. So from a spiritual point of view, from the divine, we have the source of knowledge is the words of Allah, and from the scientific, it is the works of Allah, the things that we see around us, water, tides, the moon changes. These are the works of Allah. You see how we can bring both science and the divine together so easily in Islam? And of course, the condition of these benefits is that it gives us a way to practice our faith better if we're doing it according to divine, if we're going according to what knowledge is gained through divine. If we follow that, it will give us knowledge on how to put life, the things that we have learned, into practice. And if we go from the scientific point of view, it shows us how to use these things. So we are able to predict things, not like fortune teller, but we're able to predict. We know what will happen to the ocean because of the phases of the moon. We know what's going to happen to the equinoxes by having a look at what the planets are doing. These are knowledges that we have been able to gain through the sciences. So when we require knowledge, our objective is to look at it from both sides, and we can bring both together. They're not in opposition to one another. So this is the requirements for humankind in gaining knowledge. It helps us to become more than we ever expected. We become more ethical. We become people who do not just live by fleshly laws. You know what I mean by fleshly laws? We are not just bound by what you see in front of you. Education is something that will help us to become more ethical, to become people who want to live in a way that we please Allah. And the way we can be pleasing to Allah and would please Allah is if we are people who follow the Sharia, the laws. And these laws also in two dimensions. You have two different dimensions in laws. And we'll find this in Islam. We have not only spiritual laws, but also we have earthly laws. And both are dealt with in education in Islam. First, we have the ethical law, which is also known as the Deen of Islam. And then we have the fleshly law, which is the sciences. Both of these have different cause and effect. If we look at the ethical laws or the Deen of Islam, the result is much longer. It lasts for eternity. It goes on from this life into the next. Where our sciences or our fleshly laws, the laws that how the universe is controlled, how the moons change, how the tides change, these things are more immediate and confined to this side of life. They don't carry on for the whole of eternity. They have a beginning and an end. There are different types of laws that we find even in the Deen of Islam. For example, there are the laws of learning when we educate our minds, and there are the laws of working, which is our body. So the laws of learning and the laws of working. The laws of learning are for the mind, the laws of working are for the body. If we go to the science side of laws, even within Islamic perspective, we see that it is here to serve us. These laws that we find in science are here to serve us, to be submissive to us. You see, we are submissive to Allah, but what Allah has created has been given to us to look after. So they are submissive to the way we look after them, how we are able to maintain them. If we do not look after the oceans, there will be no oceans. If we do not look after the fish stocks, there will be no fish to eat in the future. If we do not look after the environment, there will be nothing for our children to enjoy. They won't be able to go out and stand out in the sun and enjoy the sun, or go to a river, or go to the mountains, because we'll have destroyed it. So there are things that have been created to serve us, and we have to look after those things. They've been given to us as a gift from Allah for us to look after. And of course, we have to care for this environment which He has given us. So there are different laws that have been given to us. So what is the significance of this knowledge? Remember, knowledge is gained through education. First of all, it gives us superiority. Knowledge gives us superiority to all the other creations which Allah has created in this realm of existence that we live in. We are different to the animals. We are different to the butterflies. We are different to the insects. We have been created with a different knowledge. The significance of this knowledge means that we are greater than them. We are superior to them. We also have the ability, when we gain this knowledge, of being able to do the thing that we were commanded to do right in the very beginning, and that is read. And by reading, we are able to write. And by writing, we are able to speak. And by speaking, we gain wisdom from those who are speaking to us. And then, of course, we also gain accountability in this life by doing this. Well, we have to take a break, and when we get back from the break, we will continue, inshallah.
All praise to Allah.
Malik Evangelatos.
Somebody has all the material needs at their disposal,
Yes.
and they're still unhappy. That's when we come in as Muslims to give them the message of Islam. This is the point.
Sheikh Karim Abu Zaid.
They are missing. This is what the people in the West are missing. They are waiting for us to tell them about it.
Feel the passion of believers to get the blessings of Allah in Hasten to Goodness every Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. and repeat telecast at 3:30 a.m. Saudi Arabia on Peace TV. Marriage or divorce?
What's Islamic ruling?
Nikah.
Solution or problem? Heaven or hell?
There is a misconception.
You choose. Beauty, wealth, family status, virtue. Decide what you want. Decide your choice. Be sad or be happy. It's your choice. Join Dr. Zakir Naik in Better Half or Bitter Half every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. and repeat telecast at 9:30 a.m. Saudi Arabia on Peace TV.
Pearls of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Narrated Anas bin Malik, may Allah be pleased with him. The Prophet, may peace be upon him, said, "None of you should wish for death because of a calamity befalling him. But if he has to wish for death, he should say, O Allah, keep me alive as long as life is better for me, and let me die if death is better for me." Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 7, Book of Patience, Hadith number 5671.
The month of fasting, the month of spiritual development, the month of self-control, the month of monitoring one's own self, the month of offering Taraweeh. Ramadan. Rejoice Ramadan round the year. Join in to witness the congregational prayers of Taraweeh recorded from Medina, led by Imam Sheikh Ali bin Abdul Rahman Al-Hudayfi, Imam Sheikh Abdul Muhsin Al-Qasim, Imam Sheikh Hussain Al-Sheikh, Imam Sheikh Salah Al-Budair. Taraweeh, next on Peace TV.
All praise to Allah.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. We are continuing with the series today where we are looking at how to have a successful life, and we're speaking specifically about education and the breakdown of education in the world is something that we've all seen. We've seen it in our countries, we've seen it everywhere. In Islam, education is very, very important. We have been told to read. We have been commanded, first thing we've been commanded to do is read. And obviously when we start to read, we can write after we write, we can speak after we speak, we can transmit this knowledge onto other people. So it's something that needs to be taken forward. It's very, very important. In Islam, it is extremely important to be clever, to be smart. And in Christianity, we don't see the same thing. In fact, the whole idea of the Garden of Eden story that is recorded in the Bible, we find that in the book of Genesis, where it talks about the creation, it in fact encourages people to be stupid, to remain dumb. And it is a curse by the devil for you to have intellect. If we remember from the biblical story, we have Adam and Eve in the garden, and the snake says to them, God told you not to eat of this tree because you'll become intelligent, and he doesn't want you to be intelligent. So in Islam, it is the total opposite. We want you to be smart, we want you to be clever, we want you to gain an education, not to be dumb and stupid, but to be smart and intelligent, for you to have a system that will help you for the rest of your life, to be a benefit to society and not a burden on society. But there is a breakdown of our life support system in Islam. There is a breakdown of the life support system in Islam in education. The system of life that we have contains worship, it contains justice, it contains legislation and administration, it contains moral values for the family and society. It is the way we project ourselves in the media and the way we project ourselves on television and other avenues, and the way we deal with economics. We find that there is a breakdown, there is a power struggle in all these avenues within Islam. There are economic powers, there are political powers. All four of these things we have in society are being broken down by people who are not educating themselves about these specific avenues. We don't understand a lot about the political powers or the economic powers that people are using today in society to break down the life support system of Islam. When we look at, for example, the Ummah as we see it today in the world, we see that we are standing at an intersection. We are standing at the crossroads. You know when you get to an intersection, a crossroads in the road, and you can either go left or right or straight forward, or you can go backwards. And the Ummah is like that today. We are sitting here not knowing where we are supposed to be going. We're not sure if we should be going forward or we should be going backwards. Today we have lost our identity as Muslims. We don't see ourselves as Muslims. We don't have Muslim as our first name. We see ourselves in society more as a prefix. You know, one of the saddest things in society today is when we see that people are following more the teachings of the prefix than they are following the teachings of the Quran or the Hadith. People will quote their scholars who are 400, 500, or 600 years old, then they will quote the Hadith or the Quran. We're living in a society today where the Muslim Ummah is falling apart, which seems to be collapsing. A similar situation was around during the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The Jews and the Christians were claiming that they were the heirs and controllers of the faith that was around. And so when Islam came along, they didn't want to allow Islam into the scene. And so we see the Muslims were persecuted in the beginning. There are in the Quran many lessons that we can learn from where the Christians and the Jews made their errors, and how we as the Muslim Ummah can learn from their errors. Even though they tried to destroy Islam in the beginning, Muslims were told not to destroy the Christian and the Jew. We were told to live in peace with them. Unlike what the media is trying to tell you today, that Muslims are out to get you. This is not true. We have been given in Islam a way to live our lives in peace and harmony with those of other faiths and those of other religious persuasions. The main cause for the defragmentation of Islam is because we do not understand what we as Muslims are supposed to follow. We do not understand the fiqh. We do not understand the hadith. We do not understand the Quran. We have turned things upside down. We first follow what the madhabs teach. before we look at what the Hadith or the Quran teaches, instead of looking first at what the Quran teaches, then seeing what the Hadith teaches, then seeing what the early predecessors taught, then having a look at what the later scholars, or the mazhabs, as some people would say in India, are teaching. We need to turn the whole situation the other way around. We've turned it upside down. And people are proud of it today. People are proud of the fact that they follow the madhab before they follow what the Quran or the Hadith are teaching. Therefore, we have to be careful that we are not following the scholarly interpretations than the Quran. We should rather be following the Quran, the Hadith, and then the scholarly interpretations. We need to get the order right. We must be careful that we are not, as people who are teaching, those people who have gained knowledge, still remaining and teaching people archaic things or keeping people in the dark ages. We need to move them forward. The formula that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has given us. We need to make sure that we are not being a community that is pulling down Islam, but are actually helping Islam move forward to become something greater than it is at the moment. If we look at Islam throughout the world, we are finding that it is a poor reflection of what it was. It seems as if, and I'm not saying this is exactly as it is, I'm saying it seems, from the perspective of where I am looking from the country that I live in, that Islam is still stuck in Spain. We have never left Spain. Remember how powerful Islam was before it went to Spain? And then it became very stagnant. Time is changing now. We need to get back into the education field. We need to move back and start doing the things that we are supposed to be doing. We need to become people who understand that science and Islam and science are essentials for us to move forward. We need to be people who do not lack knowledge and are not blindly following things that they have no idea of what they are teaching. We need to use a rationale. We need to become more rational people, not pure rationale, because there's a lot of people using pure rationale. These are like the atheists and the modernists and so-called modern science. We don't want to do that because you've got to be very careful of humanism. Humanism is a recipe for failure in life. Many people will say, you know, Islam is a humanist religion. It's not a humanist religion. What humanism is teaching is very, very dangerous, that we do not need a God, that we do not need to follow the teachings that Allah has given us. We have seen that we are living in a world full of tsunamis. And I'm not just talking about the tsunamis that have ravished Japan over the last few years, but I'm talking about the external tsunamis that we as Muslims are facing in our day-to-day lives. The threat from within and the threat from without. There is a global war, not on terrorism, not on Islam, but on the education system within Islam. They are not worried about some crazy radical screaming that they must kill everybody. They will let that person into America. They will let that person into the UK because everyone can point their cameras at that person and go, see, here is a crazy radical. But if a scholar wants to go into America or a scholar wants to go into UK, you find that person being banned because there is an attack on education that he is bringing. He has never once spoken about blowing up buildings or hurting people or killing anyone, but that person was on the banned list. Why is he on the banned list? Because they do not want, there is an attack, there is a global war on people thinking about educating people. You are far more dangerous if you're educating people about Islam in a sensible way than some radical person burning flags and doing crazy things. There is a worldwide attack on you getting an education as a Muslim. And this is why you need to submit to Allah. This is why you have to beg Allah to allow you to continue in your education so that you can become a student of knowledge, that you can become a student not only in the classroom, but in your school, outside of your school, in your community, everywhere that you go, that you are able somehow to give the people around you knowledge about what Islam is all about. So this is why knowledge and education are so important in Islam. So in this series, we've covered the basics. The first part of the series, we've been dealing with our spiritual structure, and now we have just completed looking at the educational structure with Islam. And next time, inshallah, we'll be moving on to the next secret on how to have a successful life as a Muslim. And so Until next time, make sure you tune in again, bring your pen and paper, and be prepared to learn a little bit more about what Islam is all about. So from me, Areeb Islam, until next week, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Glory be to Allah, all praise to Allah. There is no God but Allah. Allah is great. All power and might belong to Allah, the Most High, the Great. Subhanallah.
Students of Islamic International School showcase on eve of the IIS Annual Day event.
Welcome you to the grand finale of the Islamic International School. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Performances par excellence, recitations soul stirring.
Mankind means momentary pleasure when I am with him and goes astray. They are the enemy, so beware of them. This is the summary of recorded expenses this month.
And don't you forget who's the boss. Oh, yeah?
Watch these school kids impress and uplift your hearts, your minds and your iman.
With Allah's help, this will be a memorable event.
Whiz Kids, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. and repeat telecast at 10:30 a.m. Saudi Arabia on Peace TV.